All right, after talking about the Bunka system and their textbooks, I thought it would be cool to flip through this one that I used recently to make the jackets I'm wearing in that video. It's this textbook, Jackets and Vests. And this was my main reference. I actually looked at a bunch of different 90s Chanel runways and also the costumes from the movie Clueless, since I was using a tartan. But in the end, I stuck to this one because I knew I wanted something simple. And this tartan is busy enough, so I didn't want to over design. And also, it could be hard to match all the lines later, and I just didn't want to have to, buy more fabric. So at Bunka, we start any top or dress from this bodice block with lots of lines. And I just realized making the last video that you actually have the instructions to make one from scratch at the end of each textbook. But I still have mine from back in the day. I just had to adjust a few things. But because my bust size has been the same since 2009, the main rectangle blocks, remain the same. And, I had a look at the Chanel style pattern that they called cardigan jacket here. That helped me assess how to make a jacket with less pattern pieces, so I wouldn't disrupt the tartan on my fabric. So this one is just like front and the back is just one piece. There's no seam in the middle. Instead of having front, side panel, back, another side panel, and another front. But mostly I follow the instructions for the basic tailor jackets with single-breasted and with the classic collar and lapel. But I still had to wrestle with some details like how much ease to add, because somehow when I followed the Bunka instructions to the T, things were never oversized enough to be cool, but they weren't tight enough to be like, oh, it feels sexy. And now that I look at their drawings, this one, for example, the body proportions are pretty spot on. I think the neck is a little bit too long and thin, like a Barbie doll. But looking at this, that's already a clue, because nothing in this drawing makes me feel like, yeah, that's the one. I want to be that bitch. I also wanted to make the sleeves a little bit longer, to definitely cover my wrists. And the collar a little bit longer as well, just like the reference picture. So, it's important to have it always right where you can see it. And then I had to wrestle with how to cut my fabric, because the tartan pattern was much more complex than the example in the book, because this one is a check and it's very regular. But it's a textbook, and it's meant for beginners, so it's not going to cover every single thing. And also, my head teacher would not even have allowed me to use this fabric because this one is too thick. And I just had it in my head that this was a tweed, and then realized it was much thicker. But in any case, the book also covers what type of fabric works best for when you don't have a head teacher to foresee all the things that could go wrong and make you go like, oops, when you're like already at 70% done. Moving on. Once you have the pattern drafts, the textbook will also have sections for how to check your patterns, and then how to prepare your patterns and fabric for toiling, then how to do a fitting session, what you need to check and how to correct, your pattern if you need to, and then how to make the final patterns, including the lining patterns, because the lining is supposed to be a bit loose compared to the main fabric. And here's a section that I already showed, and here there's even a part on like how to choose fusing, and yeah, then how you cut. And here there's even a section on how to do a technique called tailor tacking on the final fabric. And this would be done by hand, and it's actually quite a pain in the ass. But I just learned that Bernina sewing machines have a setting for that, so maybe other home sewing machines would have something like this too. And oof, information overload. I'm really sorry. That's why it's good to learn with someone to hold your hand and mentor you. Oh, hello. Ooh, wow. Okay, stop being silly. Now we move on to the actual sewing. Yay, finally. So here you see that Bunka has a code for what is what. Maybe it looks like it's too crowded, but you know, it's technical information. It is important, and tailoring has lots of these little parts, and like it has a code for like the. So this dotted lines are for the fusing, and then here every one of these tapes are supposed to be one of these fusible tapes that you would use for tailoring. And oh, darker gray is supposed to be the lining. And even with all these instructions and diagrams, you can see that I added some notes. Sometimes I added them in Japanese, but here you, they are, yeah, almost everything's in Portuguese. These are the notes that I would take as the teacher was demonstrating how to do each step. And we had a sheet with all the checkpoints we had to show our teacher for assessment before we were allowed to move on to the next step. And if there was something a bit more critical, for example, this patch pockets, we had to present a sewing sample for approval first. So yeah, lots of steps, lots of stages. Usually when I start sewing, that's when I feel like, yes, finally, because I can see things coming into shape. But with anything tailored, it feels like there's always another step and then another and then another. And I tried to skip some steps on my jacket, but I have to admit, this time it was not worth trying to steer away from the Bunka system. And if you check my tailored jacket, let's say any tailored jacket from, oh, Jack, you're a heavy cat. Jacket from Com, for example, you see the same techniques as the ones in the textbook. So yeah, it feels nice that I still have the system that I can rely on after all these years. But wait, there is more. These textbooks are super comprehensive, and this one still has sections for
jackets without lining, different types of lapels, lots of other pockets.
oh, of course, a part for vests, since the textbook is called Jackets and Vests. It's quite similar, like, and simpler than a tailored jacket. The section on vests is quite small. That was it, and yeah, of course, this was a super condensed version of my process to make my jackets. And also I feel like, you know, I shouldn't be showing the whole textbook on YouTube for copyright reasons. But I hope you had a slightly better idea of how a module at Bunka would go, or if it's worth maybe trying to buy one of these books in English. And honestly, now that I have filled in my gaps on creative thinking, research and design development, but also what kind of clothes I want to wear, it's a pleasure to look at these books and know that I have everything that I need to create the most fitting clothes for myself, my lifestyle, and all my naggy little body issues that I'm always mentioning. Yeah, so I hope you liked the video, and as always, if you want more, please subscribe and comment, or check out my mentorship sessions on my website. Woo! And see you next time. Goodbye.